Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Autodromo Nazionale Monza for the final weekend, the crucial weekend of the International GT Open Championship for 2019. 5.8 kilometres of the home of Italian motorsport here in Milan in northern Italy. Well, it's been a long season, from Paul Ricard back in April to Hockenheim in May, then to Spa-Francorchamps, the Red Bull Ring, Silverstone in September, and Barcelona just a couple of weeks ago. And now we're here in Monza for the final two races of the year. Air temperature 19 degrees, track temperature 24 degrees, humidity in the mid-60s. It is set to be a barnstorming season finale with 4 crews still in the mix for the title and 2 races decided all. And it could all be decided today if results go the way of the championship leaders. Good afternoon, everybody. Scott Woodward is here to guide you through all the action, and it should be one heck of a superb weekend. Here's an onboard shot from one of our onboard cameras, one of our championship contenders. This is the Martin Kodrich and Enrique Chavez Teo Martin McLaren. And we'll be seeing this shot throughout the race as it goes on. It is a 1 hour and 10-minute race. There, of course, is a mandatory pit stop race. Which, of course, the mandatory pit stop, which is a pit window which starts after 28 minutes into the race. And then we'll have, of course, some drivers will have handicap pit stops depending on success from previous rounds. There was a 25-second success penalty for this car, Albert Costa and Giacomo Altori, which will start the race on pole position. They are the championship leaders, and they're looking to hopefully wrap up the title, if not tomorrow, then possibly by as early as today, because their gap at the top is some 11 points. You can follow it International GT Open on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter. You can also join the conversation with the hashtag GT Open, so you can obviously go through and check out all the action there and check out all the goings on social media too. So, Albert Costa, who was very happy with how the car performed this morning in qualifying to take pole position, he will be starting the first stint. He will hand over to Giacomo Altori, who would love to secure the title here at effectively his home race of the season. It was the home race for Albert Costa last time out, but we'll see highlights very shortly of what happened back in Barcelona. A very crazy weekend in Barcelona for many reasons, particularly that in race 1, that car didn't score any points due to the fact it was a very up and down situation with the weather conditions. Started off in wet conditions, ended in the dry. And of course, there was a very crazy finish as well, which involved mainly the car that's on the right there, the Andres Sarabia and Fran Rueda Teo Martin McLaren. Andres Sarabia ideally will start this car for the race today. There's the Ombra Racing Lamborghini, which is set to be started by Federico Leo, and he will be handing over to the Malaysian Najib Razak in the pit stop phase. Also pleased we've got a couple of guest cars in the field this weekend. We've got the second Spirit of Race Ferrari with, in that driver lineup mainly, the rapid Brazilian veteran Osvaldo Negri, who's done a lot of racing early on in his career in Formula 3000 and lots of Formula 3 racing, but then switched across to sports cars, and pretty much ever since the sort of late 90s and early 2000s pretty much went straight into racing in America. In what was then, when he started out the American Le Mans Series, but then moved across to racing what was then Grand Am and has now become the IMSA Sports Car Championship. And he mainly races these days in the what they call the GTD category, which is effectively the same car as what we have here in GT Open. But he's decided to go for the second Spirit of Race Ferrari. And of course, with it being Italy, of course, all the support will be going to mainly manufacturer-wise, the Ferraris and the Lamborghinis. We've got 2 Ferraris here because the other car is being the second Spirit of Race prepared machine, which is being driven by Duncan Cameron and Matt Griffin. Matt will start the cars. He starts that car on Pro-Am at pole position. 3 classes of car, of course. We've got Pro, Pro-Am and Am. Of course, it's Pro cars in the first 7 spots on the grid, and the rest of the top 10 is filled out by our top 3 in Pro-Am, and then just behind them is our Am sitting pole position car, which is Giuseppe Cipriani. Bit of car park manhandling there for one of our Lamborghinis. I think that was the number 90 Christoph Lenz Raton Racing Lamborghini. It's a great 20-car field here for this weekend's season finale. And looking at the grid, there's certainly a couple of cars in the mix that can certainly play their part should their lack of a pit stop penalty play into the hands of those who possibly do, because you've got 2 of the Mercedes up in the mix. You've got the Loris Spinelli and Riccardo Agostini Antonelli Racing Mercedes up in 3rd place on the grid at their home race. 2 Italian drivers, an Italian team looking to do well. And also you've got Fabrizio Crestani, again, Italian driver, at the wheel of the SPS Automotive Mercedes alongside the Portuguese driver Miguel Ramos. And also watch out for, from 10th on the grid for Italy, Raffaele Gianmaria sharing his Raton Racing Lamborghini with Jiatong Liang. You've also got in there too the Ampol sitter Giuseppe Cipriani, who has raced solo all season, and he will start from the 6th row of the grid alongside Antonio Coimbra in the number 99 machine as well. So a very busy grid down there at Monza, waiting for the start of the race, and also very busy in the grandstands too. Great to see plenty of people stacked up on the grandstands on the pit straight here at Monza to watch this race unfold. And it's been a pretty intense weekend so far, with some very dramatic races in GT Cup Open and Euro Formula Open just before this one. And hopefully GT Open will certainly provide another brilliant spectacle as well. So there is the Martin Kodrich and Enrique Chavez McLaren. That will start from the front row of the grid. Now we know how quick the McLarens are because all three of them locked out the first 3 positions for Teo Martin Motorsport in practice, because practice is sometimes not truly representative of how quick someone is, particularly in qualifying, so you've got to watch out for that in many cases. There's our second row that you see on screen, and moving back to our third row, up on the left there is the Fabrizio Crestani, Miguel Ramos Mercedes. Just alongside them is the Andres Saravia and Enrique Chavez McLaren. There's row 4 with effectively a pair of Brits on there. You've got the Aston Martin of Optimum Motorsport of Darren Turner, who will start that car. He'll hand it over to Ollie Wilkinson, and then there's Matt Griffin and Duncan Cameron, and then just behind them you've then got the second and third place cars that are starting in the Pro-Am category. Looking down the order, you can see a few more machines in the mix. There's the Vincenzo Sospiri Racing Lamborghini, car number 66, Frederick Schandorf, who shares that car with the Finn Thomas Tugela. And just the Ferrari at the top of the shop, that's the 51 car, with Francesco Piavanati, the American, and of course the Brazilian veteran Osvaldo Negri making his appearance in the field. Also at the back of the field should be the number 31 Porsche, as we now look forwards to the starting grid here at this race in full. So Albert Costa has put the championship leading Lamborghini on pole. Martin Kodrich alongside him in the McLaren. Loris Spinelli looking to try and get a good result once again, with third on the grid alongside the second Emil Frey Lamborghini of Norbert Siegler. Fabrizio Crestani in the Mercedes, Andres Saravia in the McLaren make up row 3 for SPS and Teo Martin. Darren Turner starts 7th in the Aston Martin. Then we've got Matt Griffin in the Ferrari in 8th position. 9th place for Valentin Pierberg, sharing with Tom Onslow Cole, and 10th place for Raffaele Gianmaria to round out the top 10 in the Raton Racing Lamborghini. 11th place, and Giuseppe Cipriani is on Ampol alongside the Antonio Coimbra in the number 99 Sports and U Mercedes to make it an all-Mercedes front row for Am. Federico Leo starts the Ombra Racing Lamborghini back in 13th with Marcelo Hahn, sharing with Alan Coder on row 7. Row 8 is Alexander Hracovina, sharing with Martin Conrad, Frederick Schandorf and Thomas Tugela on row 8 in 16th place. Christoph Lenz and Andres Lewandowski on row 9. At the back of the field, it's Francisco Piavanetti and Klaus Abelin at the back of the grid of this 20-car order. So there is a shot of our pole sitters. Albert Costa feeling very confident and hoping to possibly seal the deal today. He's very relaxed in there. And usually, if drivers are relaxed and happy, they're usually pretty quick. There is our second place man, Enrique Chavez, and starting it, Martin Kodrich, the Croat. Has been incredibly quick at that Teo Martin McLaren. Of course, it's his first proper year that's been racing here. Not many of the champions have adopted it. We've seen Balf Motorsport and British GT race that car, and looking to hopefully be stronger in the second season. This car made a very big impact at Barcelona, which you'll probably see in the highlights for race 1 very shortly. Loris Spinelli and Riccardo Agostini certainly continuing that form on home soil, starting 3rd on the grid. On 4th place is the second Emil Frey car, in direct competition with its teammates for the championship. Norbert Siegler, the Austrian, and his Canadian teammate Michael Grenier make up the driving lineup and the car that starts from 4th on the grid. 5th place for the top SPS Automotive Mercedes. Fabrizio Crestani, the Italian, will start that car. He will hand over to Miguel Ramos. They are yet to win a race this season, and can possibly Fabrizio finally get that first win here in Italy. Andres Saravia, the Guatemalan, will start alongside Fran Rueda from 6th on the grid. He will start that car, hoping to make up some places in the early laps, knowing the pace of that car in clear air. Big crowd here waiting for the race to get underway very shortly. And the grid is clearing, which means we are getting set to release the cars off onto their formation lap. We've got a couple of onboard cameras, one with our championship leaders, Albert Costa and Giacomo Altoe, and the other with the Teo Martin McLaren. Just waiting for the signal. So cars head off onto their formation lap for this first of 2 races of the weekend. Remember, there is a mandatory pit stop. The pit window opens after 28 minutes. There is a limited time the cars will have to come in and serve their pit stops. And there is also a success penalty for pit stops in terms of extra time added on, depending on how they performed in the previous race. So whatever happened in the second race at Barcelona will say exactly how much of a time penalty these cars will need to take. So in the case of the championship leaders and pole sitters, as Albert Costa mentioned to Alfredo in the post-qualifying interview, they have a 25-second handicap, which means their pit stop, I think, should be about 85 seconds. It's usually a 60-second pit stop plus the penalty handicap. So Albert Costa then leading the way from side to side as he weaves the car. Now we see the onboard shot from the car that will be alongside him on the front row. Martin Kodric sharing that car with Enrique Chavez. We know how quick. Been conversations over the weekend that's saying that the McLarens will be very quick. Of course, the Lamborghinis are too, but the McLarens are the ones to watch out for. We just saw that little TV screen in the middle there. That's just a bit of a rear-facing camera with some markers on there on screen to come up when it recognises cars behind. So it was pointing an arrow there to the Antonelli Motorsport Mercedes. So to confirm, Albert Costa and Giacomo Altoe, who are on pole position, they lead the way by 11 points from Enrique Chavez and Martin Kodric. So the top 2 in the championship, who both carry our onboard cameras at the front of the field, are on the front row of the grid together. Just a point behind are Michael Grenier and Norbert Siedler on 100 points. We go back on board with Martin Kodric, and then Fran Nareda and Andres Sarabia are on 96 points. So that means that 16 points cover the top 4, effectively. Now, Albert Costa and Giacomo Altoe can wrap up the championship in this race, but they need to outscore 2nd, 3rd and 4th place in the points by at least 4. If they can do that, no matter what happens in the second race, even if Chavez and Kodric or anyone else can match them on points, it will be the title for Costa and Altoe, because counting back on wins, they have had 4 throughout the season. 1 at Paul Ricard, 1 at Red Bull Ring, and 2 at Silverstone, as well as 2 more second places, 1 at Hockenheim and 1 in the second race at Barcelona. Of course, they've only non-scored twice, once at Spa-Francorchamps, and the second time they finished at Barcelona in the first race. They finished 11th after getting a bit mixed up on the tyre strategy in a race that was very, very contrasting in very wet conditions, then moved its way through into very dry conditions by the end of the day. So all sorts going on in the mix. Cars then just making their way through the Ascari chicane. It's been a long season, starting all the way back in April, of course, but over in France in Paul Ricard. Now it's crunch point in the championship. 4 crews, 2 races, 1 title. There's also titles to watch out for, which we can tell you the story of throughout the Pro-Am, Pro and Am categories as well. There's lots of battles going on there. For Pro-Am, it's set to be a fight between Tom Onslow Cole and Valentin Pierberg and Frederick Schandorf and Thomas Tugela. And it is the Pierberg and Onslow Cole Mercedes that's in a better position. In fact, it's Frederick Schandorf who has 65 points, 4 behind Onslow Cole and Pierberg. So the Mercedes seems to be the favourite in the Am category. Giuseppe Cipriani leads Alexander Hrachovina and Martin Conrad by 3 points, but also, and so Cipriani has the pole and certainly the advantage on track, so there could be some great stories. There's lots of stories to be told here this weekend, but the crucial one is the overall title. Who is it going to go to? Will it be Emil Frey Racing? Will it be Teo Martin McLaren? And who is going to come away as the 2019 International GT Open Challenge? They stack up 2 by 2. The tensions are rising on track and in the garage. It is Costa on pole, Kodric alongside, Lamborghini versus McLaren. Who is going to win the drag down towards the Retifilia chicane? Just remember, it's a long race. It's not won on turn 1. The moment comes at the checkered flag, not at the first corner. They stack up 2 by 2. All 20 cars ready to go. Watch the lights at the top of the screen. When they go to green, race number 1 is underway, and we're racing here in Monza for the first time here in GT Open in 2019. Good start for the pole sitters. Albert Costa slotting into 2nd place is Martin Kodric. Loris Spinelli is 3rd as they spread out 2-3 abreast down towards the Rettifilio. Up towards the chicane, looking around the outside under brakes is Martin Kodric. There's a lock-up in the pack for the Spirit of Race Ferrari. Over the curbs goes Fabrizio Crestani, but a contact, I think, between the Antonelli Motorsport Mercedes and the second of the Emil Frey cars. Off onto the gravel goes Alexander Hrachovina. Oh, that's a bit of bodywork flying off the front of Martin Kodric's car. We go on board with the McLaren, but he's missing a bit of bodywork. Now, was there contact between the top 2 cars? I wonder. Either way, let's look at the exterior shots. There was it possibly the front sort of bonnet of boot section? It was. That's going to really compromise the aerodynamics on that McLaren. that is the worst possible scenario for them in terms of body damage. They're funneled their way through the Roger chicane. And what that's going to do is that will really hurt them. Unless they're in the toe, they will really feel the effects of that in the slipstream, because that's going to cause so much buffering and so much air turbulence at the front. That's going to really affect their handling. They come out to Lesmos for the first time. There's Darren Turner battling away with the Spirit of Race Ferrari with Matt Griffin at the wheel. But they head out of Lesmos, through Curva de Seraglio and up towards the Ascari for the first time. There's Giuseppe Cipriani battling away with Christoph Lenz in the Pro-Am Lamborghini. But Albert Costa, the points leader, leads the way. Kodric second. Spinelli's had a great start in third place. It is fourth place for Maurizio Crestani, fifth for Norbert Seeler, sixth for Sarabia, seventh for Darren Turner, eighth for Matt Griffin, ninth for Valentin Pierberg, and 10th for Raffaele Gianmaria in the Raton Racing Lamborghini as they head down towards it. So I think one benefit is that this car will certainly be cool for the Martin Kodric, because he's going to get plenty of air onto that radiator, but apart from that, that's the only benefit they'll have, because it really will hurt them in a straight line. So let's look at a replay, and it wasn't even contact, it just peeled off by itself. That's quite extraordinary. So someone at Teo Martin might get a slap on the wrist for that one, because it wasn't secured down properly. There it goes. And that will certainly be hurting him in the straight line. And that was for Giacomo Altoe. So a small ray of hope there for Giacomo as he watches that one. As for second place, Spinelli goes through. So the Antonelli Motorsport Mercedes goes through. The other Mercedes for SPS almost outbrakes itself as Crestani almost takes the escape road. And now comes under threat from Norbertson in the rear wing of a Ritzel Frey car, but it's up there in the top five, ahead of Andres Sarabia. Seventh place for Darren Turner, eighth still for the Matt Griffin, Duncan Cameron Spirit of Race Ferrari. And that actually leads the Pro-Am category off the start. So it's Valentin Pierberg in second place and Raffaele Gianmaria in third. And here's the move of Laura Spinelli darting out. And we said watch for the difference in straight line speed, and that really wasn't an advantage there. And also what's interesting, if you watch the radiators, we go on board under brakes with Martin Kodric, it's sort of the inertia of the car moving forward, so it sent it sort of bursting forward in many cases. So under brakes, watch it as he goes under brakes, it'll move forwards. Or it should do anyway, with under hard braking. But anyway, Spinelli in second place, pulling away and trying to catch up to Albert Costa in the lead. It's the battle for second, third and fourth in the Pro-Am category. Valentin Pierberg leads Raffaele Gianmaria and Frederick Schandorf. Crucially, Pierberg is ahead of Schandorf, and that will certainly help for the points as Darren Turner looks to the outside of Andres Sarabia into Parabolica. And can he hold on? Can he get the cut back on the exit? Looks as though the Sarabia's got it well covered, but he'll slip back into the toe down the pit straight, and Turner will start to line him up for a potential move up towards the Rettifilio. End of lap 2. Costa leads, Spinelli in second place. The gap is 2 seconds. It's now possibly third place now for Crestani in the Mercedes, as watching on is Norbert Seeler. Look at that, Kotras immediately goes to the outside to defend. And again on straight line speed goes Crestani. And also on the back of Darren Turner now is Matt Griffin in the top Pro-Am car. And second, third and fourth are pretty close together. So this is the scrap, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh and eighth all together on lap 3. Here comes Darren Turner lining up the second of Matteo Martin McLaren's for a pass, as is also Norbert Seeler. He slips through, so another place lost for Kodric. He's now going to come under threat from his teammate and Darren Turner and Matt Griffin. So I don't know if they've got a spare piece of bodywork for that, but they may well have to suffer through the first part of this race with the lack of a sort of front. He really is there just to kind of cover up the front end of the car, because the engine sat in the middle of the car. So because of that, it's not really going to be too much of an advantage in terms of aerodynamics. It'll be a deficit for sure, and that's what's making them lose out on the straights due to the excessive amount of drag that's being created. And that gap back battle that was happening between the AM cars is looking interesting. Interestingly enough for them, the AM cars, it's actually Antonio Coimbra who leads that from Francesco Piervanetti, and then Giuseppe Cipriani back in third place in class. So he's dropped down to 16th overall. This is a replay of Fabrizio Crestani squeezing past Martin Kodric, and Kodric just quickly sweeping to the outside line to prevent Seidler getting through initially, but he couldn't help allowing Seidler through under brakes into the Rogia as he hopped over the curbs. And this is further back. This is Federico Leo, and just behind them we see Klaus Abel getting a little too overexcited in the Fricadelli Porsche, one of our 2 guest cars this weekend. Good to see Porsche back in GT Open. It's not common we see them, but they are assessing possibly running 2020 in GT Open this year, amongst other things, as fortunes go from bad to worse for Martin Kodric. They've lost 3 spots on the run down towards the chicane. Sarabia just holds on as over the curbs now, braking itself goes Frederick Schandorf in the Vincenzo Spiri Lamborghini. And he did that in front of a rather bemused Raffaele Gianmaria. As now Fredrik Schandorf has momentarily got back up to 3rd place in Pro-Am. Down to 4th now is Valentin Pierberg, so he's had a shaky couple of laps to drop down. There he is in the background as Sarabia comes under threat from Darren Turner into the Roger chicane. Hopping over the curbs, keeping as wide as possible without putting 2 wheels onto the gravel. Now into Malesmo, slightly banked first corner. Slightly tighter, but faster second corner. It's faster than you might think, as Martin Kodric is starting to suffer quite something here. Now remember we said that Albert Costa needs to outscore all 3 of his championship rivals by at least 4 points. Incredibly, he's doing that right now because it's 15 points for a win, it's 12 points for second place, 10 for third. His nearest championship rival is his teammate Norbert Siedler, who shares with Michael Grenier. Now, if he finishes where he is, he will get 8 points compared to Costa getting 15, which means that's a 7-point advantage. But of course, it's a long race, so anything can happen, particularly with the pit stop penalties as well. That's the replay of Fredrik Schandorf skating off the road and rejoining up at the Rettifilio chicane as the leaders turn into the right-hander through Parabolica. This gap still looking pretty steady between 5th, 6th and 7th place. Just in front, Fabrizio Crestani holding on to 3rd ahead of Norbert Siedler. Looking at lap time, Siedler sets the fastest lap of the race. He's the second man to dip into the 147s. And into the pit lane comes Martin Kodric. I suspect this may well be to get that possibly a piece of bodywork replaced. Either that, we may have been getting a... If it carried on as it was, it may well have gotten some black and orange flag, and the mechanics think, oh, crikey, that's quite hot, that radiator. But thankfully, they do have a piece of spare bodywork. It's unpainted, but I think for them, that's the least of their worries. They just need to get a piece of bodywork on there. It's going to drop them right down the order, but then it means that Martin Kodric and then Henrique Chavez will have to try and power their way through. Unfortunately, it may well spend the end of their championship chances, but they can try and race on to see if they can regain something from this race. There is Darren Turner, 6th position in the Optima Motorsport Aston Martin, still chasing down Andres Sarabia in the Teo Martin McLaren. And has a good fight developing here. This is for 2nd place in the AM category, and here, Pro-Am category. Here it was our AM leader. He is in the championship, Giuseppe Cipriani, not having the smoothest of runs and trying to get round the outside. There was Francesco Piervanetti in the 2nd of the Spirit of Race Ferraris. He will hand that car over in the pit stops to the Brazilian veteran Osvaldo Negri. So here is the battle that's going on for, looks like, I think possibly the Jacobina Mercedes is about, he's dropped down several spots because he was up around, last time it came through, a few spaces up, as up the inside comes Fredrik Schandorf on the inside of Raffaele Gianmaria, squeezes his way past the Raton Racing Lamborghini, and that's him up into 2nd place in Pro-Am. And that will also put him 8th overall. There in the background there is Valentin Pierberg in 4th place, who leads the way in the points in the Pro category. Going round the outside of the Andres Sarabia McLaren looks Darren Turner. But again, McLaren parks it nicely on the apex and he maintains the position, holds on to 5th place for the time being, as Fredrik Schandorf now looks about trying to make the most of the clear air to pull away from Raffaele Gianmaria, unless Raffaele could possibly get a tow here. I suspect Schandorf's car might be better on pace as Turner tries again, has another look, he just peeks out, putting himself into Andres Sarabia's mirrors as they flick through the Rogia. Now up towards the Lesmos for another time. We're only on lap 6. Another new fastest lap of the race last time by for Norbert Siedler, 1:47.794, as the Teo Martin squad watch on. In fact, Martin Conrad has jumped out, so unfortunately that may well be the case, that it's the end of the race for the Teo Martin squad in that case. And that's a real shame because they were hoping to be up there in the championship, but I'm afraid that may well be their championship chances finished for the weekend, I'm afraid. And that was such a shame because it was effectively through in many cases no fault of their own, really, or nothing of Martin Conrad's fault. Martin Conrad, forgive me. Martin Kodric, forgive me. Getting my Martins mixed up. Here's the other Teo Martin car, which effectively all their hopes rest on. Fran Raider and Andres Sarabia. Sarabia at the wheel, but under attack from Darren Turner is not helping matters, with Matt Griffin keeping the 2 cars in front in touch. Again, battle for 5th position. Andres Sarabia in the McLaren, using all the road a bit more on the exit. Coming over the little patch of tarmac where there was the sort of safety sort of FIA strip, but that was removed after the Formula 3 crash for Alex Peroni, who I understand he's getting on very well after that incident. So it's removed on the safety grounds as Darren Turner again has a look, sneaks to the inside line, looks back to the outside to get the racing line. He forces Sarabia to move into the middle of the road. Back into the Retifilia they go. This will also allow Matt Griffin to get back into the mix too, as the battle for fifth continues to rage. Quick nose at the front of the field. Albert Costa sets the new fastest lap. There are the leaders. There's Loris Spinelli in second place. The gap is 3.1 seconds at the end of sector 1 on this lap. Third and fourth together. Crestani under threat from Norbert Seidler. Likewise, Andres Sarabia trying to fend off a very feisty Darren Turner. We'll hand over to Ollie Wilkinson later on. Darren Turner, of course, vastly experienced in GT racing. Before that, he did many things, including being a McLaren test driver at one point, Formula 1. But since then, he now spent his days as an Aston Martin works driver and has mainly competed this year in International GT Open alongside Ollie Wilkinson, who this year was the Silver Cup champion in British GT. So that car, along with Bradley Ellis and Ollie Wilkinson at the wheel, so he did a lot of great work. In fact, he still has the British GT sort of number decal bonnet, so you can see that they're still running a strong campaign. They are also looking at running in Blancpain next year as well, so it should be a busy period for Optimum Motorsport. And Darren Turner certainly looking to hopefully end this season with a strong result. They picked up a victory up at the Red Bull Ring this season, so they have had a win to their name in International GT Open so far this year. I think they need some clever pit strategy to possibly get themselves into the mix for a second victory this weekend, unless fortunes do go their way. Battle for third as the rear wings oscillate in the turbulence of the hole they're punching through the air. There you go. Fabrizio Crestani just trying to hold on to his advantage over Norbert Seidler. Looking at lap times, again another new fastest lap at the race from Albert Costa. And that now gives them 147.648. He's doing everything he needs to, because remember, as we mentioned, on my maths, sometimes they're wrong, but including this one, because there's no drop scores, it's a bit more clear cut. The gap at the front is 11 points at the moment between Costa and Kodrich. Now, Kodrich will not score any points at the moment. Seidler and Sarabia will, but as far as I can calculate, not enough to stop the number 63 crew from winning the title this afternoon, because it's an 11-point gap. You get 15 points for a win. There's been 4 race victories this season for the Costa and Altoe pairing, and given the fact that effectively they just need to outscore all 3 of their rivals by at least 4 points at the moment, if things would stay as they were for the rest of the race, there are pit stop handicaps to come into play as well, but if it was to stay in the case where Albert Costa was to win and everyone else couldn't pick up points to make sure they didn't drop as many as 4 points further back, it would be enough to give the championship. But wait towards the end of the race to get our hopes up to see exactly if the championship is being settled this afternoon, which means it will be something of a real end of season proper contest for the last win of the season. This battle's looking pretty strong. This is Valentin Pierreberg, 4th in Pro-Am, coming under threat for that 4th place from Marcelo Hahn in the second of the 2 remaining Teo Martin McLarens, with Alam Coder, who will hand over from Marcelo Hahn as Albert Costa puts in another new fastest lap of the race, but only fractionally, 147.643, so the gap is out to 3.6, but Loris Spinelli actually doing a fine job in second place, actually trying to keep the pace as best he can with Albert Costa, and keeping ahead of Fabrizio Crestani in 3rd place. And we did say watch for the 2 Mercedes, because they could have been the proverbial cat amongst the title contending pigeons, if you want to use that analogy. So 2nd and 3rd for the Mercedes. We did say that Mercedes, it's quite strong for them. It's a front engine, very powerful Mercedes, and these front engine cars certainly making the most of that. It's also probably the reason why Darren Turner's also helping out, because of course these Mercedes and Aston Martins have got quite a bit of power in a straight line, whereas the Lamborghinis and Ferraris and the electric cars like the McLarens are very finely balanced in the corners, as we see that's Miguel Ramos, and they conversing with his team on the pit wall. Still, the battle goes on between Andres Sarabia and Darren Turner for 5th and 6th position. There goes 2nd, 3rd and 5th shot. Fabrizio Crestani under threat from Norbert Seidler into Ascari chicane. And what's also interesting is that these two have dropped the Spirit of Race Ferrari with Matt Griffin at the wheel, 7th place. Frederick Schandorf 8th, Matt Brady Maria 9th. Valentin Pierberg rounding out the top 10. A little wide there from Darren Turner as he keeps up his pursuit of the McLaren in front. And as we talked about in qualifying, it's only really the first season that Taylor Marsden had these McLarens, and they're still learning them even this weekend. And I think their big plan is going to be, hopefully, to put a lot of testing over the winter to try and really unlock the secrets of this car, because they have picked up a couple of wins, but they really want to try and go into next year to beat the likes of Emil Frey Racing and anyone else who comes into the mix, SPS Automotive, Optimum Motorsport, and other teams that will come and try and take the fight to the champions. Of course, think about Fabrizio Crestani as well, because he and Miguel Ramos have come close on a couple of occasions to victory, but haven't quite had that first win of the season just yet. And they're hoping that this could be an occasion when it can happen. Now, a change on for 4th in Pro-Am. As down the outside goes Marcelo Hahn, around into the Retafila, goes very deep into the first pot. Oops, over the curbs, he's tagged the rear of Valentin Pierberg, and around goes the 20. Is he going to be beached in the gravel? That could be disastrous for the Pro-Am Championship leaders. Round goes Marcelo Hahn, he carries on. And as he gets going again, Valentin Pierberg's car is sat in the gravel trap, spinning its rear wheels. The SPS squad can't believe what's happened. And that possibly, if they can't get that car going again, that'll be a retirement, and it could well be advantage Frederick Schandorf. Because Schandorf is second in the points at the moment in this racing Pro-Am. As we look at Federico Leo for Ombra Racing. But there is the number 20 car in the gravel trap, and that is possibly going to have major implications in the championship for the Pro-Am class. So, we'll come back to that in a second, but Valentin Pierberg effectively may well look as though his race could be done, and there's still plenty of it to go. We've still got about 10 minutes until the pit window opens. But talk about high drama in a weekend for championship contenders, not just in the overall standings, Pro-Am are suffering too. So just quickly for a note for the AM category, Antonio Coimbra also leads the way. Now here's a replay. Marcelo Hahn goes down the outside, goes over the curb, effectively loses steering, just clatters into the side of the Mercedes. Round it goes, and the first thing that Valentin Pierberg does, when he's in the gravel trap, puts his foot down and spins his rear wheels, but all that will do is dig the Mercedes into the gravel even further. And Marcelo Hahn just kept going straight. I think he did his best efforts to try and turn as much as he could, but the fact when you almost kind of get beached on the curb when you're moving, you lose all front end steering, and so Marcelo Hahn certainly I don't think would have attended that deliberately, but at the same time, SPS with their head in their hands thinking, what on earth has just happened? Now then, that is the Spirit of Race Ferrari with a damaged front splitter, so that's now hanging off the front of the car, and they've actually been caught pretty quickly by Frederick Schandorf, who is second in the Pro-Am standings and in the Pro-Am race at the moment. He's all over the back of Matt Griffin in the Ferrari, so we haven't even reached the pit stops yet, and there's been drama in many cases. We had Martin Kodrich's McLaren losing its bodywork and out of the race. Then the Pro-Am Championship leaders in trouble in the gravel after contact with the Teo Martin McLaren. And now, Matt Griffin with a damaged front splitter, so that will really be killing the aerodynamics. It really is hammering away at the front end bodywork. That will kill his straight line speed and his handling and his stability. And I think Frederick Schandorf, getting past for him is only a matter of when rather than if. But meanwhile, back at the front of the field, this man not worrying about anything so much. He's got a 4.3 second advantage over Loris Spinelli in second place, and effectively doing all he needs to do to go ahead and race away for the title this afternoon. Loris Spinelli in second place is being caught by Fabrizio Crestani in third, and in turn, Crestani has now dropped Seidler to the turn of 1.3 seconds. So, looking good so far for the Mercedes in second and third at the front. See the air turbulence on the front of the car. You see there's double wave yellows down at the chicane. That will be for the rescue of the Valentin Pierberg SPS Automotive Mercedes, of which its teammate will pass it any second now. Through the chicane it goes, and there it is. And it is being pulled out of the gravel trap, but I'm afraid by the looks of things that is race over for Valentin Pierberg. Tom Cole will be absolutely gutted. So those two will be under pressure to try and hold on. That means they will score no points. And in Pro-Am, I think it will mean that Frederick Schandorf, provided that he can bag some good points to finish this race, will take over the Pro-Am Championship lead. So the leaders now in the race overall make their way towards the Lesmos. They're coming up to put a lap on some traffic. The first car they're going to lap very shortly will come up in a second. This is Norman Seidler, the second of the Emil Frey Lamborghinis. 4th place, just outside the podium. He's dropped back a little bit. The gap is now 1.5, so he's lost a couple of tenths already on this lap so far. There's his teammate and race leader and championship leader, Albert Costa. 2nd place for Spinelli, 3rd for Crestani, 4th for Norbert Seidler. How great would it be to have 3 crews, all with Italian drivers, on the podium overall here in Italy? I think that would send the crowds pretty wild, wouldn't it? Back in 5th position in the background is Andres Saravia in the Teo Martin McLaren, still remaining ahead of Darren Turner, so maybe Darren's decided to sit back a little bit and just hold off pushing a bit too hard, because he knows he might possibly get them back in the pit stop cycle. As Valentin Pierberg does get going again, so it looks like he stayed behind the wheel, so he gets going once more, so he may well still salvage some points, and that's all they really can do at this point in time. He's back down in 19th and last, and he is now a couple of laps down, so that recovery took 2 laps, which means that he's now really got to try and fight as best he can. Of course, it now means that when Tom Onslow-Cole takes over, he will have to drive like the wind to make up as much time as possible. Meanwhile, Frederick Schandorf finally makes his way through, past Matt Griffin, who still has that front section of that car flapping around in the air turbulence. It's a broken front splitter. There it is, look, you can see on the front end of the British Racing Green Ferrari, but into the Pro-Am lead in this race goes Frederick Schandorf. And I imagine, if things stay as they are, it will be into the lead of the Pro-Am Championship for the Vincenzo Sospiri Lamborghini. Schandorf makes his way down towards the chicane. He's actually running 7th overall, so a strong run so far for the 66 Lamborghini. And Matt Griffin in the Ferrari also running strongly in 8th position. Raffaele Gianmaria in 9th, and Federico Leo rounding out the top 10. And here comes Albert Costa then, looking for his 5th win of the season. And cool, calm and collected at the front. Had a career previously in single seaters, but then switched to GTs. And ever since then, he has really shown his raw pace. It just took a while off, but there was a story I remember that Elliot Wood told back at Silverstone, when he talked about the fact that it was actually his other half that got him back into racing, where he was complaining about the fact that his drivers were coming through and he felt he was possibly more talented. So his girlfriend said, well, if that's the case, get back into racing. And she managed to find him a drive with Emil Frey Racing. And since then, that relationship has blossomed ever since. Now, of course, they are getting closer and closer to the title here in International GT Open. They've still got just over 45 minutes to go. There's about 4.25 minutes to go until we open the driver pit stop window, as the 2nd and 3rd place cars wind their way through, still pursued by Norbert Seidler, who hasn't really closed the gap too much. It's still 1.5 seconds. No change either here for 5th place between Andres Saravia and Darren Turner. The gap between them is 0.6 of a second, and the McLaren, forgive me, still has the straight line advantage, it seems. We were told at the beginning of the weekend that the McLarens were going to be quick, and not just for their engine, but also for their aerodynamically optimised, very sleek body on these cars. Quite a good drag coefficient on these McLarens, I'm sure. And they're pretty quick in a straight line too, as a result of that. But the Aston Martin also running with a pretty strong result so far. So Aldo Malesmos through Curva di Seraglio, these very flat out left-hand kick. They go underneath the old circuit, under the old oval with the hard banking. I think there isn't that yet over the weekend, but I might just do at some point before the weekend is over. And as they come out of the Ascari chicane and onto the back straight, we look back to our battle for 2nd, 3rd and 4th. So the gap between them is 0.8 of a second between Spinelli and Crestani, and then 1.1 between Crestani and Seidler. So on this lap so far, Crestani has reeled in the 3rd place Mercedes by about 0.4 of a second, but just in front you can see up the road now, the gap is now possibly 5 seconds by the end of it, just under 4.9 between Costa and Spinelli, and Costa now not relaxing, but certainly driving like a champion-elect in many cases. Back into the Resifilia they go once again, 2nd, 3rd and 4th together. Battle for 5th still won't go away. And for Andres Saravia, neither will Darren Turner, because a hard fight between them. Through Curva Grande, you can see on the left-hand side the standings in the Pro Pro-Am and Am top fives in the race. Leading Am, actually, of course, is the number 99, Antonio Coimbra Mercedes. Then it's the Giuseppe Cipriani Mercedes, the leader in Pro-Am in second place. Pier Venetti in third, who will hand over to Osvaldo Negri later on. But it's Alexander Harakavina and Martin Conrad in fourth place in Am, and Andrei Lewandowski in fifth in Am category. And it's Shandorf, Griffin, Gianmaria, Hahn and Lentz in Pro-Am. And as you're seeing it, top 5 overall in the race is also top 5 in Pro category. And speaking of which, fourth place man Norbert Siedler has set the fastest first sector of the race, and he's actually almost effectively matched his teammates, who leads the way. So the Emil Frey Lamborghinis are certainly coming into their own in this part of the race just before, as Tom Onslow Cole contemplates the task at hand to try and gain back as much time as he can and salvage something from this race so far in the Pro-Am class. Into the right-hander at the Parabolica. Still a minute to go until the pit window opens, so next time by is when crews can start to jump into the pit lane for our leaders. Costa's gap is now out by more than 5 seconds. It's a new fastest lap of the race, 1:47.422. And the gap is now 6 seconds. So in one lap, he's pulled the gap up by about 1.1 seconds for this battle for second, third and fourth. And Crestani's edging ever closer. He was 0.3 quicker on the last lap. He's got the gap down to 0.6, and Siedler also even quicker. He did a 47.8, so that's brought him to within 3/4 of a second of a podium place at the moment. But of course, pit window opens any second now, as Costa carries on his merry way in the lead in the number 63 Emil Frey Lamborghini. Under brakes, just in the background there, Andres Sarabia and Darren Turner still running in tandem. Mauro Spinelli, of course, won on the road in race number 1 after he pulled off quite a spectacular move in many cases to get into the lead, as we see Costa winding his way through the chicane as he continues to put in effectively quite a flawless, touch wood, race so far. First pit stops in earnest. Number 90 Raton Racing Lamborghini is in, so Christoph Lentz jumps out and Alberto Di Folco jumps in. They've got a handicap of 75 seconds, so it's a 75-second pit stop for them. Also hitting the stops is the Lazarus Racing car. We haven't really talked about them too much, but Lazarus Racing feeling, as we said, that was Lewandowski, and he's handing that car over now to Eliseo Martinez. Now then, are any of our leaders going to jump into the pit lane on this first time by and how the pit window is open? Also, the pit stops is, rather unsurprisingly, the SPS Automotive Mercedes. Along with the tyres and driver change, it will be a possible quick check around the car to make sure that the contact from the McLaren hasn't damaged the car too much. But of course, now it's the responsibility of Tom Onslow Cole to try and get that car up as high as it can. Yes, it's a couple of laps down, but all he can really do is drive his heart out and try and make sure that the damage is minimised. It really is damage limitation for them. Got a hard task in front of them, but I'm sure if anyone's up to it, it is TOC. So, into the pit lane, the first of our front runners, it is Michael Grenier who is jumping in for Norbert Siedler in the second of the 2 Emil Frey cars. Also in the pit lane is the Teo Martin McLaren, Fran Rueda jumping in for Andres Sarabia. So, the Guatemalan jumping out and the Spaniard jumping in his place. They've got an 85-second pit stop as Tom Onslow Cole exits the pits. The tyres are done, and also in goes the fuel as well, as our leader continues on his merry way. Albert Costa with a nice clear track around him. Nice and steady at the front. He'll hand over to Giacomo Altoe, and it'll be his task to bring it home. And provided, depending on how the pit stops shake out, we may well be saying in 40 minutes' time that these are your new International GT Open champions, both overall and in Pro-Am. Into the pit lane, 2 of our AM cars. It is, as the pit lane comes, Pier Venetti in the Spirit of Race Ferrari. He'll hand it over to Osvaldo Negri. And Alexander Hrachovina also brings the HWA Motorsport Mercedes, and he will hand that over to Martin Conrad, the Austrian. Into Parabolica goes our race leader as the 25 Mercedes gets underway and goes to work. And Albert Costa comfortable out there whilst the pit window runs. He's still got 11.5 minutes to go. In the pits is also our Fricadelli Racing Porsche. Out jumps Klaus Abelin. And into the pit lane, or into the car, will go Thomas Preening, former Porsche Carrera Cup Germany champion, now Porsche junior driver. not just for their GTs, but also he's been part of their development driver program for the Formula E F for Porsche. So he's got a history of single-seaters back in Italian and German F4, but he made the switch to Porsches and certainly hasn't looked back ever since, because GT racing is treating him very well. Now, just while we look at this battle of what's currently at the moment second and third place, we did notice that the second M1 Racing Lamborghini came out just in front of the leader, as there was a drive-through penalty for car 16. That is the Taylor Martin Motorsport McLaren of Marcelo Han and Alain Corder, and that is for, non-surprisingly, causing a collision with the number 20 SPS Automotive Mercedes. So because of that contact that has, to be fair, compromised Tom Onslow Cole and Valentin Pierreberg's race, that car will receive a drive-through penalty as a result of that. So we've had most at the moment, if not a few cars haven't made the stops. Into the pit lane now for making their stop is the, can't tell the number, was that Cipriani, or was it, it was Cipriani, so Giuseppe Cipriani in the pit lane. Still haven't seen Loris Spinelli in yet. Here's the pit stop for the car that's got the drive-through. So Alain Corder will have to serve that for the actions of Marcelo Han, as the Mercedes pair still battle away. You see there the leader, Albert Costa. He's got his teammate Norbert Seidler in front of him, but they have to remember that these two can't really work together. So effectively what Seidler will do, what Michael Grenier will do, is simply drive the way he wants to drive, because M1 Racing, it's a championship battle between these two effectively, so they can't kind of work together. They have to pretty much race against each other and do what they can. As into the pit lane comes Fabrizio Crestani. He will hand over to Miguel Ramos, stops it down to the speed limit, hits the speed limiter button, will crawl along at 60 kph until he finds the SPS Automotive pit. That will be their second service of the day, given that they've already serviced their teammates in the Pro-Am class. So the 10 car comes to a stop, the door flies open, and probably hits Miguel Ramos back in the arm, but he jumps back into the seat. Crestani will help him out with the belt. So while that's happening, the SPS crew go to work changing the Michelin tyres on the Mercedes. Now here's what we're talking about. Yes, Norbert Seidler is effectively at the moment, because Albert Costa hasn't stopped yet, he's effectively a lap down, but there's no point in him slowing down effectively, because he has to keep on pushing, because these two are still battling for the championship. Yes, they're teammates, but they can't necessarily work together because they really have to go for it. So Grenier is pushing as hard as he can and hoping that Costa doesn't catch him up too quickly before he has to pit for the mandatory stop to change over to Giacomo Altoe. So Grenier has to use all the clear track he's got to extract as much pace from this M1 Lamborghini as possible, whilst his teammate in an identical car tries to do exactly the same thing to maintain the lead. And here's a replay, of Giuseppe Cipriani almost tripping over Osvaldo Negri, but Osvaldo using all of his experience to quickly move out of the way as Cipriani takes to the grass. I think that's the second time he's done that today at that corner. Back onto the road, and I'm sure we'll try and slow down a bit to not gain too much of an advantage. Out through the Parabolica. Now, is the leader going to jump into the pit lane this time by? No, he's not. He's going to carry on for another lap. And he'll get a bit of a tow, actually, ironically, from his teammate down the pit straight. So that's a benefit at the moment. We've still got in the pit window 7.5 minutes to go. So there's still quite a bit of time for these guys to make their stops. But some teams will choose to run towards the end of the pit window to maximise their track time. Into the pits comes the second place car. So Loris Spinelli hits the stops. He will jump out and hand over to Riccardo Agostini. Now then, let's see what they can do to possibly get themselves out in front, still ahead of Miguel Ramos and Fabrizio Crestani, because they made their pit stop one lap previously. And they'll be trying to use the undercut if they can to try and use the fresh tyres on that car to draw him in. Miguel Ramos came back out onto the circuit in 8th place as the two M1 Racing Lamborghini still run in tandem, technically a lap down to each other. There's another Lamborghini of Ombre Racing is in. They've already made a brief pit stop once, I think, for some kind of damage. And now it's the proper pit stop for Naji Razak to jump in and hand over from Federico Leo. And again, slick pit work at the moment from the Ombre Racing crew. Majestic, isn't it, watching them in sequence? Anyway, looking back at the replay here, that's the Spirit of Race Ferrari with a piece of bodywork that was on the front of that Ferrari's now managed to break off. But out onto the back straight come the two leaders, and let's see. Now remember, as we say, Norbert Seidler and Michael Grenier have made their pit stop, but at the moment, everyone in the top 5 is yet to do so. That's the Albert Costa Lamborghini we're looking at here. Darren Turner in there as well, though that may be about to change as, yes, into the pit lane comes the race leaders and championship leaders Albert Costa. So he will hand over to young Italian Giacomo Altoe, who has been racing still TCR cars over in Italy as well. Now they've got, look, there's a 100-second handicap here, so it's 75 seconds for a pit stop plus 25, so this is 100 seconds they're going to be stationary for in the pit lane whilst all the work's going on. So this could be possibly where things change in this race. This will now put Darren Turner, provided he does pit on this lap, which I don't think he has, into the lead of the race. Frederick Schandorf will be up to second in the Pro-Am lead. Third place will be Raffaele Gianmaria by the looks of it. And then fourth place, my apologies, for Antonio Coimbra in the number 99 Mercedes that leads the AM class. So Pro-Am and AM leaders getting up towards the front, but still get to make their pit stops. The highest car that has made a pit stop is this car, Riccardo Agostini, who, as you can see, did get out in front of Miguel Ramos. So the undercut didn't quite work for SPS, and it is Antonelli Motorsport looking to get a good result at their home circuit. And they'll be coming up to put a lap on Thomas Preening's Fricadelli Racing Porsche. Fricadelli here as a guest entrant to assess a possible entry into the championship next year. Great to have a Porsche on the grid. We will, in fact, because we'll have Nicky Luttweiler, who is one of the front runners in the GT Cup Open Championship, who races a Porsche Cup car. He'll be moving into GT Cup Open with a Porsche with his squad TFT. And we look forward to seeing them, see what they can do to tackle the International GT Open squad. So, out of the pits comes Giacomo Altoe. What has this done to the order? Well, interestingly enough, both Riccardo Agostini and Miguel Ramos have both gone through. So that's third place. Is it fourth place? Because here comes Fran Nareda at full speed, and yes, he does get through. So this is interesting. Giacomo Altoe then jumps out in fourth position, and they're actually just in front also of their teammate, because Michael Grenier did really push on with that clear air in front of him, keeping Albert Costa at bay. He's a few seconds back, but this could work out nicely if he can hold on for the time being. So what this has now done is, effectively, once all the pit stops shake out, it will give Riccardo Agostini the championship, the race lead. Championship lead is still with, of course, the 63 car. Miguel Ramos in second place. Fran Nareda will be up to third, and Giacomo Altoe will be down to fourth after the stint put in by Albert Costa. But that will have mainly been due to the fact they had the 100-second success penalty for their pit stop. Fastest lap of the race, as you can see on the bottom of the screen, has gone to Fran Nareda as their sister car with Alan Correa at the wheel comes in for its stop and go. This is the reason why Marcelo had a little out of control over the curves and whack straight into the left rear of Valentin Pierberg. And in his desperation, Valentin Pierberg did try to put the power down, but usually in a big powerful car, when you're stuck in the gravel trap, it does mean that you can't quite get out properly. So this car now leads the way, even though it hasn't made a pit stop just yet. Frederick Schandorf is in second place, Raffaele Gianmaria in third, and Antonio Coimbra in fourth. They are the four cars that haven't stopped yet. Here is effectively the de facto race leader, which is the Antonelli Motorsport Mercedes. But what is Miguel Ramos doing to close that gap in? On the last lap time by, he actually lost a tenth and a bit, so gap is staying stable at the moment at what looks to be 2.7 seconds on my timing screen. So let's try and hold on as best as they can. And how great would it be for the Antonelli squad to pick up a victory after they lost out due to the 5-second penalty they were given for being judged to have cut the chicane, making that dramatic move. Ironically, on this car we're watching at now, the Andres Saravia and Fran Nareda Teo Martin Motorsport McLaren, when it was in fact the sister car of Marcelo Han and Adam Correa that ended up tripping them over and seeing the Antonelli car possibly get down the outside to make a move. Here is Darren Turner, who finally jumps in to make his pit stop. And let's see what kind of advantage he has. Now, the gap was 1:10 at the end of that last lap, and it's a pit stop handicap of 75 seconds. So we'll see where Ollie Wilkerson will slot in. Also in the pit lane are the other three cars we need to make a pit stop, which is the Vincenzo Sospiri Lamborghini with Thomas Tuchel jumping in, and Jiatong Liang, which we're looking at here in the second Raton Racing Lamborghini. They are also in, and here's our last pit caller, so they're going to jump in with about 1 minute and 20 to go in the pit stop window. So all four of our final pit callers in together. That's Thomas Tuchel jumping in for Frederick Schandorf. Jiatong Liang has taken over from Raffaele Gianmaria. and in the pits number 99, Luis Silva will take over from Antonio Coimbra. So the Portuguese pairing making the switch. And past the pits comes now the race leader. So these Mercedes are leading 1-2 at the front, and that's the man who leads the race so far. Riccardo Agostini in the Antonelli Motorsport Aston Martin and Mercedes. Both front engine, different brands, different countries. Anyway, Aston Martin, done it again. Mercedes leads the way. Get it right, Scott. Mercedes leads the way for Antonelli Motorsport. Second place is still Miguel Ramos. The gap is 3.3 seconds, so Agostini has the pace advantage. And on legit pace, it does look as though the Antonelli Motorsport are getting in a very good position to finally take their first victory. They've ended up with second after that 5-second penalty for the move they pulled off on Sarabia in the final corners. No contact, but just cutting the curb a little too much, which cost them the penalty. And as a result of that, they've shown a lot of renewed vigour, and ever since Barcelona, they really have found the groove with this car. And how great is it that at their home circuit on the final weekend, they are really marking themselves out as potential driver pairing to watch out for next year, should they move into next year with Mercedes and the Antonelli squad. There is the team watching on as the number 6 Mercedes makes its way into the Ascari chicane. Now in that second part of the race, the driver change period has ended, so we've gone past the period that it's allowed to do so. As Miguel Ramos winds his way through the left-hander of the Ascari chicane. In the background, in third place, in fact, thanks to that pit stop, is Ollie Wilkinson. So Ollie out of his pit stop in third place. A good stint, one of the longest stints in the race from Darren Turner. A really good stint from the Aston Martin works driver to give Ollie Wilkinson, one half of the British GT Silver Cup champions, a really good position in third place for the Aston Martin. So 3 front engine cars cover the first 3 positions. A pair of Mercedes and then the Aston Martin. As for Giacomo Altoe, might not be the championship today this afternoon after all, because that championship had that pit stop handicap seems to have put them down in 5th position, although their last lap was a 1:47.403, which is the fastest out of the top 5. So it might not totally be over, but they've still got 26 3/4 minutes to go, so it's going to be quite a task. If they can get onto the podium, that will certainly help things, because remember, they have to outscore all 3 of their championship rivals by at least 4 points. If they can do that, they will be champions this afternoon. But that has to happen, otherwise it will carry over to tomorrow's final race of the season. And so far at the moment, looking at where our championship contenders are in the order, well, Fran Mereda is 4th and ahead of Giacomo Altoe, so that's not good for them for a start. Michael Grenier is 6th. We know Martin Kodrich is out of the race with some damage that's sustained on the first lap through no doing of his own. The front section of the bonnet flew up, or the front of the bodywork piece where the bonnet would normally be on a car like this flew up because it didn't look as though it was secured properly. That then caused problems possibly to the cooling system, as I think it was getting rattled around too much, being dislodged in the car thanks to the damage. And sadly, that, I'm afraid, looks to be their championship chances potentially over, I think, as a result of that. As the pit lane comes the Duncan Cameron Ferrari. Now, is that due to the damage they've had on the front end of that car? In it comes. I wonder if that damage on the front left is causing quite a bit of push on the front end, on the front tyres of that car, and burning them up too much. It looks as though possibly does have a look about it that may sort of give the idea, but that car, I'm afraid, may be about to retire from this race. Lead gap is now 3.6 seconds, and Riccardo Agostini was only a few hundredths quicker than Ramos that time by. Meanwhile, Giacomo Altoe, fastest lap of the race, 1:47.371. He was at least half a second quicker. Hey, hello, what's going on here? This is 4 of our AN-class cars altogether. This is now Luis Silva. This is 1st, 2nd, 3rd and 4th altogether for the AN-class lead. So this should be entertaining. Luis Silva ahead of Giuseppe Cipriani, the AM points leader. Then Osvaldo Negri, never count him out, the experienced Brazilian. Does all his racing in the America at the moment as Cipriani slices up the inside to take the AM class lead. It then sort of hinders Osvaldo Negri. Oh, over the curbs and straight into the side of Osvaldo Negri goes Martin Conrad. I think possibly the Mercedes was getting a little too impatient. Round goes the yellow Mercedes. And also I think that's possible left rear suspension damage to the Ferrari. So that will dampen the Italian fan spirits. And Oh dear, Martin Conrad, that's the wrong way. You need to turn the car back around again, which he has, and rejoins in front of, well, no, I think he's going to come in front, I think just in front, possibly, the race leaders, I think, after all that happened. Looks as though that Osvaldo Negri has got away as well, but that really was a bit of a messy situation. I think possibly, maybe both have got caught off guard. I did notice that when Lewis Silva Mercedes was going, I think, slower than the other two cars behind really anticipated. There is Osvaldo Negri's Ferrari, seems to have got away. It looks okay after that contact. It did take quite a hefty whack in the rear corner by the Mercedes, and also so Martin Conrad has carried on despite the contact. So keep an eye on those two cars to see how they feel. Looking at the Ferrari, it's actually held up pretty well actually after that contact. So they build them tough in Maranello. They build them tough in Stuttgart as well, by the looks of things. So Osvaldo Negri carries on. Here's our second place car, Miguel Ramos. As he heads out of the chicane, the gap is 3.6 seconds. And again, despite the fastest first sector from Fran Rueda, Giacomo Altori again pumps in another fastest lap of the race, 1 minute 47.314. And incredibly, he was almost a second quicker than Riccardo Agostini on that lap. And there's still quite a bit of time to go. Just under 23 minutes left in the race. Incident involving cars 25 and number 51. Unsurprisingly, is under investigation. Now, here's what happened. Cipriani went up the inside. I think possibly that Lewis Silva went a little bit too deep. And ooh, that looks messy. Martin Conrad, I think, didn't really want to back out and realised he was running out of road. And how lucky were both Alain Corder and also Alonso Cole not to collect the Mercedes. And I think Martin Conrad just tried to go side by side where there really was no room, and straight into the side of Osvaldo Negri he went. Round went the Ferrari, and kept the engine going, and that was all the benefit. Even meanwhile, the two Lamborghinis going into combat. Jaiton Liang trying to get the number 19 Raton racing car stopped, and he does just about, but at the expense of allowing Thomas Tuchel through into what has now become the Pro-Am class lead. So that car was shaking around under brake, trying to get it stopped, but while he did so, it wasn't enough to hold back the Finn in the Vincenzo Sospiri Racing Lamborghini to take the lead of the class. So 3.6 seconds, and the gap has stabilised on this lap so far because Agostini took a 10th out of Ramos on the first sector. Ramos got it back on the second sector. In the third sector, it is advantage Ramos. He's picked up a couple of tenths, so the gap is now 3.5. He's got plenty of time, 21.5 minutes to go, so still plenty of opportunities for this Mercedes to go on and possibly take its first win. Of course, remember, the cars in the top two haven't won a race yet. Technically, number 6 car did on the road, but of course it had that penalty afterwards for the corner cut to get past Andres Saravia at the final chicane at Barcelona in race 1. Ollie Wilkinson, his team has won a race so far this year. And Fran Rueda is also in 4th position. 5th place for Giacomo Altori with another fastest lap of the race. He really is charging. In fact, there he is in the background. 5th position. Michael Grenier is back in 6th. He's also lapping quickly in the 147s, but not exactly as quick as Altori is. Fastest first sector last time by actually went to Marcelo Hand, 34.0. So we told you the McLarens have got some horsepower in a straight line. Through goes Wilkinson, followed by Fran Rueda, then Giacomo Altori. He knows exactly what he needs to do. Foot to the floor, keeping the battle for third place in his sights as they come up through Curva di Serragno, underneath the old circuit, under the back d'Oval, and back into Ascari. This is on lap 27 of this first race of 2 of the weekend, the final weekend of the International GT Open Championship. It's been quite a year. Started back at Paul Ricard in April. Of course, since then they've been to Hockenheim, to Spa, to the Red Bull Ring, to Silverstone, to Barcelona a couple of weeks ago, and then it all concludes here at Monza. And Fran Rueda keeping a possible third place finish in his sights. Just under 20 minutes to go now. And just in front, just in the distance, we just saw first and second. I just seen Riccardo Agostini putting a lap on some cars. Yet again, another fast lap of the race once more, and very consistent lap times here as Altori keeps on eating into the advantage of the cars in front. It's now 11.2 seconds to the leader. He has got these 2 cars in front to try and negotiate if he can get through, but Ollie Wilkinson and Fran Rueda may well be caught up in a battle of their own, and they may not possibly notice that Giacomo Altori is closing in that much. So let's watch, listen and learn to see exactly how this all plays out. Up through Curva Grande. Fran Rueda keeping keeping in the slipstream on the run down towards the Roget. It's a very bumpy braking zone. You can see it better in GT cars because while they are stiffly sprung, compared to a Grand Prix car in many cases, maybe not as stiffly sprung as a Grand Prix car, but you do get to see the cars bounding over the bumps a little more. It's great to watch them under braking as they start to dance and scatter about under brakes trying to fight for traction. Giacomo Toei keeping third and fourth in his sights. Again, he's much closer than he was last time. Last time by lap times, he was 1.2 seconds faster than Ollie Wilkinson and a full 8/10 quicker than Fran Rueda. So he certainly is proving that these guys are very much champions-elect. Whether or not it'll happen this afternoon or tomorrow afternoon remains to be seen, but the signs are looking good for the weekend overall for the 63 Emil Frey Racing Lamborghini. Scrap for third, travels through the heat haze here on this October afternoon here in Monza. Just outside Milan in Italy, in the north of Italy. Good to see plenty of spectators watching on here this weekend in the main grandstand as the championship battle plays out here. We've already lost one of our four main contenders in Martin Kodrich and Enrique Chavez, as Andres Fran Rueda starts to line up Ollie Wilkinson for a pass, and Giacomo Toei wants a piece of the action too, and Rueda forces Wilkinson to go deep into the first part of the chicane, was a little wide on the exit over the curb, and here comes Fran Rueda with a super exit out of the Rettifilio chicane through Curva Grande, keeping in the slipstream of the Aston Martin. The McLaren may well dart to the outside line. I don't think he'll try and make a dive unless he's very brave. Where's he going? Inside or outside? Doesn't make it stick just yet, but he does start to put himself into Wilkinson's mirrors, just to remind him he's still here. Meanwhile, behind them, of course, Giacomo Toei is eating away at the souls of both of these GT cars into the Lesmo corner. So third, fourth and fifth all together for the final podium spot at the moment. The gap has been pretty stable. It's been pretty well evenly matched between Riccardo Agostini and Miguel Ramos. No real change in the order at the moment. 3.6 seconds is the gap. This is the main fight that we watch in this first race of the weekend here at Monza. Still Wilkinson holding off Fran Rueda, very feisty Giacomo Toei, who knows exactly what's at stake this weekend, right on the McLaren's tail. This could be a good chance. Good exit through Ascari. Could potentially see him line up Fran Rueda for a move, and I think Fran Rueda's having to go defensive. Which way will Toei go? Left and then right. He's looking for the dummy, but again, not far enough alongside under brakes. Wasn't a quick enough exit. Couldn't get close enough in the slipstream. So a good run through Parabolica will certainly help, but also what's helping Fran Rueda is the fact that Ollie Wilkinson is giving him a tow all the way down the pit straight, and that's certainly helping Rueda to keep ahead of Toei on the sprint back down towards the Rettifilio. Back under brakes. Wilkinson just about holding on. He's really been made to work for this one so far. I dare say if he can hold off these two for the next 16 minutes or so, that'll be very impressive. But I think that Rueda and Toei will certainly keep on pushing the issue all the way until they eventually try and make Wilkinson make a mistake. Meanwhile, at the front, the gap has gone out by a few more tenths, up to almost 4 seconds. So Agostini and Spinelli certainly do seem to have the measure of the field this afternoon. And as they come out of the Rogia and up towards Lesmo. Still no change in that scrap for third. And the longer they stay like this, the more they'll start to run out of time. They pick the sprint through the curve of the Seraglio. And once again up towards the Ascari chicane. Very fast section of the track. You sort of pitch the car in and sort of use all the mechanical and aero grip that you've got to plant the car to the road. It's a great sequence of corners if you get it right. Little wide on the exit, little puff of gravel smoke there from Ollie Wilkinson, and he still continues to hold off Andres Sarabia. Forgive me, Fran Rueda, as Giacomo Toei continues to hound the pair of them. And on this occasion, Rueda hasn't really got as strong a toe as he'd like on the back of the Aston Martin. Now this puts him under threat from Toei in the Lamborghini. And is he close enough to possibly try and think about a dive here? Up towards turn 1, he's got to be careful because he knows what's at stake this race. And again, closes back in. He forces Ferreira to go to the middle of the road. He's not going to get the best line into the Rettifilio that he wants. Looking for the undercut. Alto is right under the gearbox of the McLaren as they come out of the chicane up through Curva Grande. I sense a move potentially up towards the Roger chicane. But again, we know how quick the McLaren is in the straight line. But the Lamborghini is latched onto the rear of Rueda's McLaren as they come up towards the Roger. Darts out to again have a look, but he's not close enough. And still can't make his way through. He's holding on to 4th place as best he can. But at the moment, Rueda has the advantage in 3rd place, the final podium spot. Out of Lesmo 1 into Lesmo 2. And again, the harder you battle with somebody, you lose time, not only to the car in front, but to the cars behind, because keep an eye on the background. Michael Grenier's not that far away. It says 3.6 seconds, but you'd be surprised how much time somebody can make if you suddenly see the 2 cars in front battling and they start to hold each other up. You just sense them as a driver. You can see them getting closer and closer, almost corner by corner, as they start to keep on scrapping amongst each other and worrying about each other and losing time on track by trying to hold each other up. And all that does is let the car in front get away, but at the same time the car behind catch up. And case in point, at the end of that sector, it was 3.2 seconds. Now there's a championship connotation. If it stays as it is, it will be a 13-point gap between Albert Costa and Giacomo Altoe and Michael Grenier and Norbert Sieder, with Fran Rueda and Andres Sarabia only a further point behind. So that will make it very close for 2nd place, but a 13-point gap going into tomorrow's last race. That would mean that, unless something really dramatic happened to our championship leaders, either Grenier or the Rueda and Sarabia McLaren would have to win the race, and effectively this car, number 63, would have to not score, either due to similar circumstances in Barcelona where they finished but outside the top 10, or, dare I say it, retirement, or something that causes them not to finish. But either way, that is the connotations at the moment. If it stays as it is, it will certainly be much better if he can make this happen. Of course, what can also help is the fact that if it stays as it is, Michael Grenier will be moving up into 2nd place. But of course, it means at the moment he'll be losing points. So if he stays in that position and Altoe can make up a few more positions, that can help. Now this is dramatic. Race leader Riccardo Agostini. This will certainly help the championship leaders. Riccardo Agostini has been given a 5-second time penalty for failing to comply in the change of driver rules. So possibly that could be maybe possibly a 5-second pit stop that was too short, and also a drive-through penalty for car 25. That's Martin Conrad, and that's for the collision with Osvaldo Negri at the Ascari chicane. So the race leader has a 5-second penalty. What he needs to do now to keep on to the lead is he needs to make sure he gets the gap out by another 1.5 seconds, which means he needs to start pushing. He will be told on the radio what the situation is. He will be told, Riccardo, you have a 5-second penalty. You need to push. As in the pit lane for its drive-through comes the 25 Mercedes. Martin Conrad, 4th in Pro-Am. As the leaders come through, and again, the fact that these 3 are holding each other up, look at the gap now, it was 3.2 a couple of laps ago. Now it's 2.3 between the 2 Emil Frey teammates, and that could really shake things up in the championship. But of course, effectively, they've been let off the leash. So that means that these 2 don't really need to help each other. They can pretty much battle for the championship. I'm guessing they've been told you can fight hard, but you have to fight firm and fair. So this should be pretty interesting. If Grenier can catch Altoe, Rueda and Wilkinson, what role might he play in this? I think Rueda hesitates a little bit in the 2nd part of the chicane. This is further along the line. This is Thomas Preening slotting past Osvaldo Negri. So the Fricadelli Porsche up into 5th in Pro-Am and 30th place. And this is the aftermath later on, where we saw the 3 cars battling together. Oh, there's Thomas Preening, not shy about using the curbs. Leaps over the first part of that chicane, whilst the battle for what was, that was 2nd place in Pro-Am took place. That was between Osvaldo Negri and Luis Silva. So this is 2nd, 3rd and 4th in the Pro category. Or 3rd, 4th and 5th. forgive me. Ollie Wilkinson in the Aston Martin. Fran Nareda in the McLaren. And Giacomo Altoe in the Lamborghini. Ideally, he needs to get past both of these cars and for Grenier to stay exactly where he is in order to potentially see him still snatch the title, because it's possible, he can still do it, but he needs things to go his way. At the moment, they're not. In fact, looking at the gap now, it's down to 1.6. So remember what I said about cars battling, holding each other up? There's the classic point. The gap was about 3.2 seconds, and about 2 or 3 laps it's come down by half. That's how much of a deficit it can be if you're being held up by somebody. But of course, Rueda, all he can do is just keep on driving to keep Altoe back, because he needs to make sure that he's taking as many points as he can away from the championship leaders to make sure that he's still got the best chance possible, if at all, of still being champions tomorrow. But there's still 8.25 minutes to go for effectively anything to happen. So we'll wait with bated breath to see if there's a change, if there's a development. But Ollie Wilkins is doing a very incredible job in 3rd place for Optimum Motorsport Aston Martin. Darren Turner, I'm sure, watching on, rather nervous, but also rather pleased with Ollie's progress. There's the Osvaldo Negri Ferrari ahead of our race leader that has that 5-second penalty. Now, I think he has got the message, because the gap has gone out to, now it's 4.7 seconds to 2nd place man Miguel Ramos. So, of course, once he gets the gap out to at least 5 seconds, as long as it's over 5 seconds, that penalty kind of negates itself, because he's cancelled it out to the fact that he's managed to pull out a 5-second gap, and therefore, even if he does get the 5 seconds added on, he should still be in front in the order, though it will say that he might be ahead by a few tenths or a second, but what the screen will show he's actually in front by 5 or 6 seconds on the road. So Fran Nareda again doing all he can to hold up Giacomo Altoe here to defend his position for 4th. But Altoe knows he has to get through and then start chasing after Ollie Wilkinson. But he's running out of time. He's only got just a fraction over 7 minutes to go. They're coming up to put a lap on the Luis Silva number 99 Mercedes again. Rueda tries to break the toe, and also look in the background. Here comes Michael Grenier. The gap's down by another, but it's been halved again. 1.6 down to 0.8, and now things start to get really tense, because these 3 cars are now the 3 main contenders in the championship, and they're all on track together, and this is all for position. Strap yourselves in, ladies and gents. This could be quite a dramatic finish to this first race, and there's still one more to go tomorrow to settle it. Let's watch, listen and learn to see exactly what plays out here. Wilkinson controls the pace in 3rd, Rueda 4th, 5th place for Altoe, 6th for Grenier. And Wilkinson is, at the moment, holding off the 3 main title contenders, who may well start scrapping amongst themselves. In this situation, the gloves are off. You have to go for it if possible. Altoe, I'm sure, won't just go for any old move. He will try and calculate this as best he can. But he has to be careful, knowing that his teammate and main championship contender, one of them at least, is right behind him. Down the back straight, under the bridge, which sees the old oval banking, the old oval used here that's still kept around for historic purposes. On the approach to the Ascari, and out through Ascari, and out towards the leaders. Now, what's interesting is that there's the 2nd place Miguel Ramos Mercedes. Looking at lap times, now Wilkinson was a fraction quicker on the last lap, but not enough to really trouble Ramos. The gap is 7.5 seconds. Meanwhile, Ramos hasn't actually dropped away enough for Agostini to get the 5-second penalty. For action, the last lap he gained half a second, so that's interesting. Possibly, if it stays as it is, it will be a first win of the season for Miguel Ramos, as Ollie Wilkinson flashes the headlights to say, come on, respect the blue flags, you need to get out of the way. He's got 3 very fighting championship contenders all lining up behind him, as Fran Nareda thought for a moment he could possibly sneak up the inside of the Aston Martin. Wasn't close enough, and now look at this, the 2 Emil Frey Lamborghinis are nose to tail out of the Rettifilio up through Curva Grande. This is all for 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th on track. There is Michael Grenier. And remember, there's no team orders here, effectively no working together. These 2 Emil Frey cars will have to fight it out for the championship. There's no ifs or buts. They have to fight each other. Otherwise, it'll simply just be handing the title to one driver on a plate. Wilkinson frantically flashing the headlights, saying, come on, move out of the way! Because he has to try and move through to hold on to 3rd place. Silva, can he move across? Oh, I think Silva moved to the inside line. Wilkinson tries to do the same thing, because he thought possibly that Silver was going to stay on the racing line and Wilkinson would try and slide up the inside, and Fatey back to left at the right time to hold on. All 4 cars have got through safely. So good driving from Lewis, well done. 4 minutes to go, and the lead gap is actually 3.7, so at the moment it's not enough for Agostini to win. So for the second time in as many weekends, due to a penalty, the Antonelli Motorsports... Well, that's a puncture! That's a puncture for Giuseppe Cipriani in the other Antonelli car. So I thought for a second I was getting too excited at the fact it was a white Mercedes, but it's the other one that's in trouble. So that is the AM Championship leader. So 2 of our Championship leaders are in trouble. So high drama at Monza, not just the Pro-Am Championship leaders of Valentin Pierberg and Tom Cole, but also the AM Championship leaders of Giuseppe Cipriani. Goodness me, it's all changing up here. So Cipriani was second, dropped behind Lewis Silva now. It's Osvaldo Negri that leads the way, who leads in the Pro-Am category. But remember that actually they won't score points because they're a guest car, which means that actually Lewis Silva will pick up the full points for the AM class in terms of the victory. So yes, it will be Negri on the top step of the podium in the Ferrari, which will certainly please the Italian fans, but they won't get any points because they're only here as guest drivers, and guest drivers, in terms of scoring allocated points, are effectively ignored in the results. So Lewis Silva, who should score points, will get the maximum 15, or however many points for Pro-Am. Martin Conrad, despite the drive-through, should still get second, and depending on how Eliseo Martinez gets on, he might get third, but then again, it doesn't take too long to change the tyre. Might still be a podium for Giuseppe, so we'll wait and see how that works itself with 2.5 minutes to go. Still, this 4-car fight for third place. You get the sense that something's just brewing that's about to kick off here, because they're all starting to keep closely matched together here as they come down the back straight through Curva di Seraglio under the old circuit. Ollie Wilkinson driving rather finely here. Gap in the lead so far for the record is up to 4 seconds again, but again, still not enough, because it would still give the victory to Ramos and Crestani. There are the 2 leaders being split by the now AM class leader, Osvaldo Negri. And there is that scrap for third. Aston Martin leading the McLaren that leads the 2 Emil Frey Lamborghinis, and they're all starting to get a little bit rowdy now, just moving up to try and possibly make a move. They'll all be in the slipstream down the pit straight. There's only, I make it possibly, maybe the last lap this time by, in fact. Across the line they go. There may well be one more, in fact, I think. Possibly 2 laps to go in this. No final lap on the side of the graphic on the left-hand side. So we'll wait and see. It may well be just about time for 2 more laps, which means it could be an extra opportunity for any of these cars to make up a place. Into the Rettifilia they go. Wilkinson parks the car on the apex through the first part of the chicane, through the second part. Still trying to struggle to get the power down, but here comes the McLaren in the mix. And the 2 Emil Frey cars are line of stare. Remember, of course, 4th, 5th and 6th are championship contenders. It stays as it is. It'll still be a 13-point advantage going to tomorrow. That will mean effectively, as long as they can bank points and outscore their they can bank points tomorrow, effectively what they need is, they need to make sure that they can score, I think, probably at least 9th place, and make sure that no one else really sort of has any bigger results that could cause a problem. I think Moradi was struggling a bit for grip through the first part of Lesmos as the afternoon starts to draw in here at Monza. And I think we're going to get maybe one more lap. There's no last lap on the timing board just yet in the top left corner, so it's still potential that the leaders are going to come across the line and maybe start one more lap. Down towards Ascari, and Alto again just pops out to have a look, but he's just not close enough to get past Fran Raider. Maybe he's simply just biding his time and just wants to bank the points and keep his teammate behind at bay. The leaders are going to come through. Now, they're going to get past with the checker flag in sight or not. They might just get past with about 2 or 3 seconds to go. Here comes the fight for third. I think they are going to get one more time around, I think. Yep, they're on the final lap now. Up through the final couple of the corners then, down the pit straight. One more time around then. And the gap is actually 4.7, so Agostini needs to pull out a gap of just over 0.3 of a second now to hold on to the race victory, as here comes Giacomo Altoe in the slipstream of Fran Raider. He's been sitting here for laps to try and plan this move. It's now or never. Down the outside, up for fourth place in the race. Down the outside. Oh, they almost make the contact. They go around the outside. Wheel to wheel for the championship contenders. Over the curve goes Giacomo Altoe. Shades of Barcelona. There's a bit of contact, but the body works off there. And Fran Raider loses 1 but 2 places. And there's damage to the McLaren. Damage to the front right of the McLaren. That's possibly a puncturous and bodywork rubbing on the front right of the Teo Martin car. So damage to the McLaren. That's dramatic. That could be possibly decisive for the champion. That possibly could put them out of the title hunt in many cases. And that is, we said it was possibly going to kick off, but it really did on the last lap. It was going to be now or never. So this now puts Altoe up to 4th. It puts Grenier up to 5th. Rueda down to 6th position. So it's all dramatic here. Meanwhile, it's also dramatic for the lead because the gap is 4.6 seconds at the end of sector 1. It needs to be more than 5 by the end of the race. Agostini will keep pushing, so will Ramos. Remember, if it's less than 5 seconds, the win goes to that car in second place. Will it be Agostini and Antonelli Motorsport winning to redeem themselves for Barcelona? The gap is 4.7. I'm not sure it's enough. I think these cars might be able to win it. The camera's focusing on our second place car on the road, but we'll wait and see. Into the Parabolica for the final time. It's been a crazy first race. Here coming onto the pit straight to win yet again on the road will be the Antonelli Motorsport Mercedes of Loris Spinelli and Riccardo Agostini. In the final time, it's going to be 4.6. So it does go to Miguel Ramos and Fabrizio Crestani. Finally their first win of the season. They've finally done it. And 3rd place on the podium for Ollie Wilkinson and Darren Turner in the Optimum Motorsport Aston Martin. And the 3 title contenders, 4th, 5th and 6th, come across the line. And looks as though that we've got celebrations for Emil Frey Racing. Does that possibly mean, is that possibly the title? It may well, they're celebrating like it might be, but even so, we'll have to keep an eye on that because I'm not sure. Okay, well, there's celebrations all around. Well, they're celebrating the fact they finished ahead. Might need to check our calculations to have a look at that one, because I think they had to outscore all their rivals by at least 4 points. Now, here's the replay of what happened. So, Altoe looked down the outside line. He's quite clearly there. Look at that. They have to turn at some point. Over the curbs goes that. This is, oh, that's almost shades of what happened before. There was contact once and then twice. And look at this. The bodywork gets lodged in between the wheel and the wheel arch. So whatever contact there was the rubbing wing mirrors into the final chicane. And just like it was with the McLaren and the SPS Mercedes, Altoe ends up going over the curb, hits once, and hits twice again. And the bodywork, to give it more bad luck, it sort of moves around and actually goes around and gets caught in the wheel arch. And that's what starts rubbing against the tyre and possibly started wearing away the tyre to cause a problem. So that saw it drop away. And I think they were maybe celebrating the fact that that was them possibly getting the advantage they need. Now then, team managers of cars 63 and 17, no surprise, have been called to report to the stewards, and it will be investigated after the race. So, is there going to be a change? Well, here's the result then. Provisionally, and thanks to that 5-second penalty, it is the first win of the season, finally, for Miguel Ramos and Fabrizio Crestani for Mercedes. Second place, but a valiant drive yet again, having to miss out thanks to a penalty, Spinelli and Agostini. Third place, a really hard-fought drive for Wilkinson and Turner in the Aston Martin. Fourth place for Costa and Altoe, then Seidler and Grenier 5th, Heredia and Sarabia 6th, Schandendorf and Tugela win Pro-Am category. Leo and Razak drive to 8th. Very strong effort from them. And the 2 Raton Racing Target Lamborghinis end up 9th and 10th in the order, with Lamborghinis filling out, incredibly, 6 of the top 10 spots. 11th for Adam Coder and Salo Han. The Albin and Preening Porsche, good effort from the back of the grid up to 12th. Then it's Piavanetti and Negri who win the AM category but do not score the points. They go to Coimbra and Silva in the Sports and New Mercedes. Then Hracovino and Conrad, Giuseppe Cipriano after his puncture. Pierre Berganon's Cole, 2 laps back, but they do finish last. And so for the championship, it's not quite done just yet because 120 points to 106. 14 points. Basically, Albert Costa needs to outscore Grenier and Raider by at least 1 point. That is just his teammates. 1 point is all they need to settle the championship. That's it. So celebrations, I think overdue celebrations. These guys have been duking it out all season for a race victory. And finally, at the final weekend, it comes good. They're loving that one. But, now this is interesting. Albert Costa, is he celebrating like he thinks he's won the championship? Because our calculations suggest it's 15 points for a race victory. So it could still go to Michael Grenier. It could still go to them. That's if they don't finish and they score. Effectively, they need to win the race to make it happen. So I think Albert Costa thinks he's won the championship. On my maths, it's 15 points for a win and the gap is 14. So I'm not sure that's the championship done just yet. It'll take a monumental effort and a monumental piece of luck, I think, for their teammates to win it. But unless my maths are wrong in terms of the points and stuff, I don't think they've won it just yet. They're just on the cusp of it. I think they're celebrating the fact that they finished ahead of their rivals in the championship. So we shall wait and see. But there's a very happy Miguel Ramos. And they are on the top step. They think they won the championship. They think they're the champions. My calculation says not quite yet, but I think they'll celebrate nonetheless. And it's been a hard-fought season for them, so they might have to just go and recalculate their points, because I don't think you've won it just yet, boys, unless I'm missing something here. I think they're celebrating a little too prematurely, but nonetheless, that was very hard-fought to get that particular result. So let's take a look at the top three then. In third place, a really strong drive for the Optima Motorsport Aston Martin squad of Wally Wilkinson and Darren Turner. A brilliant drive to hold off the championship contenders to pick up third place and the Aston Martin Vantage. Second place, despite winning on the road for the second weekend in a row, Spinelli and Agostini and the Antonelli Motorsport Mercedes. They will try and come back tomorrow for more results in the last race of the season. But thanks to the penalty, finally their first win of the season. It's Ramos and Crestani for SPS Automotive. But let's head down to the pit lane where Alfredo has them to talk to them. First-time winners in GT Open in 2019.
Fabrizio Crestani, Miguel Ramos, at last victory here in Monza. Beautiful victory, the maiden win overall this year. And let's start with Fabrizio. First stint was lively.
Yeah, it was okay. I mean, we keep the gap with the car in front. We didn't have handicaps, so it was going to be good at the end of the race. And yeah, gained 2 positions. Then Miguel had a great pace, and 2/10 in front of the leader. Was really suffering all the race long, but I'm really happy, and I think we really deserve it.
Yeah, sweating, but happy, Miguel?
No, very happy. First win this year. Very good. I just need one more win in GT Open to be like Montermini, so I need to come next year.
It will be a pleasure, as always. Now enjoy the podium, guys.
Thank you.
So, first-time win for Miguel Ramos and Fabrizio Crestani as we're getting set for the podium celebrations for race number 1. And we'll be coming up with some highlights very shortly of what was, in the end, a very dramatic finish to this first race of the weekend at Monza. And while the championship leaders may think that they've won the championship, our calculations suggest they haven't done it just yet. Need to be 15 points ahead. It's 14 points, which it's possibly going to go down to tomorrow to settle things. But I think we're just waiting for the highlights to come up, and of course we'll be in the podium. Highlights of race 1 on championship deciding weekend here at Monza. It was a strong start for the front row for both Albert Costa and Martin Kodrich on the drag down to turn 1, but also a great start for the Antonelli Motorsport at Mercedes of Loris Spinelli. Into turn 1 they all charged. There was drama already for one of the championship contenders when a piece of bodywork fell off Martin Kodrich's McLaren after coming loose. That caused problems to the radiator, and sadly that saw them out of the race with drama later on in the race. And because of that, they lost straight line speed, losing out second place to Loris Spinelli, almost with a bit of contact. They started falling backwards in the order until eventually they retired, and that put them out of the championship contention early on in the race. A dramatic situation for the Pro-Am leaders. Contact with the Harlan and Coder McLaren put Valentin Pierbeck in the gravel trap, much to the dismay of SPS Automotive. They managed to get themselves back out again, but down the order. An incident involving the HWA Mercedes and Osvaldo Negri in the Spirit of Race Ferrari saw the Ferrari spinning around. There was a penalty for them, and more shenanigans going on between the Lamborghinis as Thomas Tuja took the lead of Pro-Am to go into the race lead at many points. Also, there was Thomas Preening switching past Osvaldo Negri late in the race. And then there was more action down towards the chicane as Preening just moved ahead and continued on. But of course, being one of the guest cars, they would not pick up points, and they were battling away with Negri in the last stage of the race. In that stage, it was all about the battle for third between the Aston Martin, between Emil Frey Lamborghinis and the McLaren, and this eventually was what decided it for fourth place. Round the outside came Giacomo Altoe. He came across the curve. There was contact once and then twice, but a piece of bodywork then got lodged into the wheel arch of the McLaren. It caused bodywork to rub onto the tyre and slowed them up. And whilst it was a win on the road yet again for Laura Spinelli, a 5-second penalty for a pit stop infringement meant the first win of the season and of the championship for Miguel Ramos and Fabrizio Cristani, with the action to come up in second place. Here's the national anthem of our winning team of Italy for SPS Automotive. So all three crews on the podium already, including our team representative for Optum Motorsport on this fantastic sort of open plan podium they've got here at Monza. It is a dramatic thing, particularly when you see it on Grand Prix weekend. Of course, we had Charles Leclerc winning the Italian Grand Prix, and the sea of Ferrari red you saw there was brilliant. So here's our third place winners. A great job for the British pair, for Aston Martin, Ollie Wilkinson and Darren Turner winning for Optum Motorsport. Great effort from them, particularly that great defensive drive from Ollie Wilkinson in the second stint. Second place, again, winners on the road, but I'm sure they'll get it next time if the opportunity occurs. This time for Laura Spinelli and Riccardo Agostini. Very hard fought drive for them. Their time will come one day, but they have proven that car's got a lot of pace in their hands. But finally, a very long overdue victory for them, I'm sure, but they can finally celebrate. It is the first win of 2019 in the championship for SPS Automotives, Fabrizio Cristani and Miguel Ramos in the International GT Open Championship. And also the winning team trophy goes to SPS Automotive, another one to take home for their base as well. And as they celebrate, we now look forward to the last race tomorrow. On our calculations, the title is still up for grabs. A 14-point gap between the two Emil Frey cars. Who's it going to go to? Will it be Costa and Altoe, or would it be Grenier and Seidler in a surprise action? So join us tomorrow for all the action for the final race of the season for Monza. But from all of us here, thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.